At the number 10 spot is the Fable series. Fable is quite an old RPG that was started at the birth of 6th-gen platforming, Xbox exclusive and PC and Mac OS X. You assume the role of an orphan boy who realizes his dream of becoming a hero. The choices players make affect the perception and reaction of the hero, as well as his story. When I was younger, this Xbox game was one of the best RPGs I've ever played. Probably the best for Xbox, if I don't mistaken, besides Morrowind and such and such. It's a definitely an RPG to get that feel of the old-fashioned RPG sense, and it's definitely one of the most highly recommended 6th-gen platforming RPGs. As for how old this game is, and the 3 games under its belt, it earns the heroic spot at number 10. At number 9 is Baldurs Gate. Baldurs Gate is a role-playing game developed by BioWare and published by Black Isle Studios. It is a sequel to many Baldurs Gate since 1998. The game's plot revolves around the protagonist's encounters with Isurus and set in the south events in Baldurs Gate in the country of Arn, mainly around the city of Alcathar. The game received critical acclaim upon the release of GameSpot and IGN awarded Baldurs Gate their role-playing game of the year in 2000, and the game sold more than 2 million units. Baldurs Gate is an RPG mainly set around computer, but it is one of the best computer RPGs and these remind you that this game was made in 1998, and this game was way ahead of its time. It was exactly like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and it's a great RPG. If you're looking for a lot of RPG fun that was set old school, this is the one, and it's number 9 on the spot. At number 8 is Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is a series of video games developed and published by Square Enix. The franchise centers on a series of fantasy and science fiction fantasy role-playing video games, but includes motion pictures, anime, printed media, and other merchandise. The infamous first game in the series, published in 1987, was conceived by Sakaki as his last-ditch effort in the game industry. The title was a success and spawned sequels. The video game series has branched into many genres such as tactical role-playing, action role-playing, massive multi-online role-playing, racing, third-person shooter, fighting, and rhythm. Although most Final Fantasy installments are standalone stories with different settings and main characters, they feature identical elements that define the franchise. Recurring elements include plot themes, character names, and game mechanics. Plot center on a group of heroes battling a great evil while exploring this character's internal struggles and relationships. Characters' names are frequently derived from the history, languages, pop culture, and mythologies of cultures worldwide. Square Enix's best-selling video game franchise with more than 1 million units sold in one of the best-selling franchises. Final Fantasy is one of the best RPGs that have its own type of mechanics. It's really fun. The story is really get into, and you don't have to follow any of the other games just to get the feel for it. It doesn't follow in a linear story or anything. It's a really good game if you're into like the whole anime thing. They have a lot of movies and stuff and stuff like that. So if you really like this is definitely an RPG for you. Okay. Diablo franchise. Diablo is a action role-playing hack-and-slash video game series developed by Blizzard Entertainment. As of May 30th, 2012, the series has sold over 24.8 million copies worldwide. The series is made up of 3 core games, Diablo, Diablo 2, and Diablo 3. All 3 games are action role-playing games, sometimes called hack-and-slash expansion games, including the third-party game published Diablo Hellfire, which follows the first game, Lord of Destruction, published by Blizzard and released after a second game, and the recently released Reaper of Soul, which is the third game additional content. The series is set in a fantasy world of Sanctuary. The 3 games in the series take place in similar geographic areas with several common areas, including the town of Tristram and the region of Mount Erida. Additional setting is provided by the high heavens and burning hells, two separate realms realms with ties to Sanctuary. The series focuses on the battle between the humans living on Sanctuary and the prime evils, demons who are led by Diablo, the series' chief antagonist. The humans are occasionally aided by angels, notably the Archangel of Justice, Terrell. The characters in the world of Sanctuary are primarily humans, angels, and various classes of demons and monsters. Diablo is one of the few games that it's a lot like Baldurs Gate. Baldurs Gate is like the advanced of, or Diablo is the advanced version of Baldur's Gate. There's better weapons and skills and stuff like that, but Diablo 2 was the first Diablo I played, and I played the shit out of that game, and I killed Diablo, and then I went on to face Bale, and I never could get that far because it's extremely fucking hard. Diablo is a challenging game, and if you're into upgrading and investing a shitload of your hours into one game, this is another game for you, and hopefully you guys like it. It's a really good game, and I definitely recommend this. World of Warcraft is a massively multi-online role-playing game, or just RPG, just to slim it down in this category. Was created in 2004 by Blizzard Entertainment. It was the fourth game release set in the fantasy Warcraft universe, which was first introduced by Warcraft Orcs and Humans in 1994. World of Warcraft takes place within the Warcraft world of Azeroth, approximately 4 years after the events at the conclusion of Blizzard's previous Warcraft release, Warcraft 3: The Frozen Throne. Blizzard Entertainment announced World of Warcraft on September 2nd, 2001. The game was released on November 23rd, 2004, on the 10th anniversary of the Warcraft franchise. World of Warcraft is one of the most massively online World of Warcraft is the most massively online role-playing game that's played by tens of millions of people every day, and the game is super addicting. And some people aren't into it because you have to pay for subscription. This is probably one of the ones that you've probably heard of but you never played because people make fun of it and all that other stuff. But it's really fun. And if you can get into it, the graphics are kind of crummy, but what do you expect? But the game is really good, and if you are willing to get into if you like massive or MMO, MMRO or RPGs, or whatever the fuck they're called, they're for you. And this game's actually probably one of the best ones. Like, they have a lot of different DLCs that you can have on there, and the game's really fun if you're into it, and hopefully it piques your interest, I guess. Dark Souls is a role-playing game set in an open-world environment. It was developed by From Software and Namco Bandai Games internationally. A spiritual predecessor from Software's Demon Souls, Dark Souls is a third-person RPG. The core mechanic of the game uses death to teach players how to react in hostile environments, encouraging repetition, learning the past mistakes and prior experience as a means of overcoming its difficulty. Dark Souls takes place in a large and continuous open-world environment, connected through the central hub area. Players are able to travel to and from areas and explore various paths, although certain prerequisites have to be met in order to unlock certain areas. Scattered throughout the game world are bosses and creatures of various types that must be defeated. From almost all enemies killed, the player will receive a relative amount of souls, which act as both currency and experience points. Dark Souls is one of the hardest games ever to be on consoles. This is probably one of the most difficult games I ever encountered during my time of playing it. It was one of my most hated games, and once I started getting the hang of it and loved the lore, then I started to fall in love with it. It was one of the best RPGs I've ever played, and it is probably one of the most games I recommend to people that I know. So if you guys like this game, give me a comment. We can play together. I fucking love this game. I still play it, so see you. Fallout 3 is a RPG that is made by Bethesda, and it started off as a PC game, and it was kind of like Diablo, like another game on this list. And this is set in a nuclear apocalypse, end of the world scenario, with corpses and ghouls, super mutants, and irradiated creatures. This happened after a war struck down, and all chaos breaks loose. Ghouls in the metros, abandoned buildings, just chaos breaks out. The entire game, Fallout 3 is the only one that really has a unique story that is for the consoles. I'm just focusing on the console version. You go on a quest to find your dad, and you go through hell. You have never killed anybody before. You have never experienced anything out of the ordinary, and your character must go through circumstances to find your father and pretty much save the world, pretty much. You have a unique system called VATS, which lets you target somebody's head and stop time completely and annihilate them in the head. And it's a really good game. I'm not going to go too much into detail with it. Just get it. I mean, the game is badass. It's old, but get it. Fallout 3 and New Vegas, they're really good. And that's why it's at this spot. Mass Effect is a science fiction action role-playing third-person shooter video game series developed by the Canadian company BioWare and released for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Microsoft Windows, with its third installment released on the Wii U. Okay, like I give a shit. A trilogy largely revolves around a soldier by the name of Commander Shepard, whose mission to save the galaxy from a race of powerful mechanical beings known as the Reapers. All three games have received critical acclaim for their storyline, characters, romances, voice acting, character choices, and a depth of the galaxy. Video game website Game Radar called Mass Effect the best new franchise of the generation, saying the galaxy was so well constructed that it felt like a decades-old franchise and represented a high watermark for video games as a storytelling medium. A trilogy of games has been released, each continuing the previous game's story in chronological order. The Mass Effect series combines action role-playing game elements with the main series being in third-person perspective. The protagonist can use two controlled AIs members in battle, which usually consist of members he or she has recruited from various places and various reasons. The player can perceive decisions depending upon the situation. At the times, the player has multiple sets of dialogue choices with which to respond to NPCs separated by tone. Starting from Mass Effect 2, the player can interrupt cutscene calmly and aggressively. The games often has various mini-games in them as well, such as drinking, dancing, and romancing characters. Mass Effect is one of the best third-person RPGs they have out there. I mean, all of them have been pretty much really good games. I mean, Mass Effect 1 was so good, it really puts you into the feeling for the other games. Mass Effect 2 was really good, and Mass Effect 3 was probably the best out of all of them. It ties everything up. There's also a Mass Effect 4 coming out. I don't know if you guys are excited for that. I'm kind of not, but Mass Effect 1 through 3, if you haven't even heard of these games, at least try it out. It's made by BioWare, which is made by Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is one of the best RPGs I've ever played, actually, which is weird why I didn't put it on this list, but I tried sticking with some of the new edge kind of games, and trying not to include any of the other series. I didn't like 2, that's why I kind of didn't really put it on here, I guess. But I just had to put Mass Effect on here. It's one of the best storytelling, sci-fi type of games on this list. I don't think you've ever heard of that type of stuff. It has a really unique storyline, and it's definitely recommended. That's why it's at this spot. The Witcher 2, Assassin of Kings, and soon to be The Witcher 3. The game is based on a book series by the same name by a Polish author. I can't pronounce his name because it's too fucking crazy. The Witcher takes place in a medieval fantasy world and follows the story of Geralt, one of the few remaining Witchers. Traveling monster hunters for hire, gifted with unnatural powers. The game's system of moral choices as part of the storyline was noted for its time-delayed consequences, and lack of black and white morality. The game tells the story of Geralt of Rivia, who, at the opening of the game, is tasked to cure the daughter of King Foltest of a curse, which causes her to transform into a feral monster, including the player to the nature of Witcher work. The initial cutscene shows Geralt's quest to cure her by surviving a night in her presence. I actually fell in love with because of the in-depth story. It actually has one of the most in-depth storytelling I've ever had in a video game. It's really good actually if you think about it. They have really good voice acting. Your character is a fucking badass, and there's just so much there's just too much good storytelling in the game to even put it down. Honestly, there's so many good choices. Your character is kind of an awesome badass. Hack and slashes, kills everything. I mean, the game can be hard at times, but the game is really good, and I prefer it, and that's why it's at this spot. If you have a PC, definitely get the first game first, and then play the other games, because if you go right to the second game, you will not understand shit. Number 1 is The Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls is a series of action, role-playing, open-world fantasy video game, or RPG, and just to dumb it down. Primarily developed by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. The series is known to elaborate in richly detailed worlds and its focus on free roam gameplay. Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim all won Game of the Year awards from multiple outlets. The series has sold more than 30 million copies worldwide. The Elder Scrolls game can be safely categorized as RPGs, or role-playing. The Elder Scrolls games can be safely categorized as role-playing games, or RPGs, although they do include elements that have been from action and adventure games in arena. As many RPGs, players advance by killing monsters and thereby gaining experience points until the preset value is met, whereupon they level up. I highly recommend any Elder Scrolls game because they're just a lot of fun. You can invest so many hours into these games. Seriously, in just Oblivion, I think I had over 275 hours. And in Skyrim, I had, oh my god, I don't even know how many. More than 3 weeks of gameplay. Let's just leave it at that. These games are repetitive, yet they're fun. You can always experience a new thing every time you play these games. And that's why it's number 1 on my list. It has so many unique things that other RPGs just can't get. And they're a shit ton of fun. I mean, Skyrim is one of the best RPGs ever made. And they have so many cool things to do. They always have something new that always comes out into you. And the lore is just rich. And it's definitely one of my most recommended games ever of RPGs. And you have to play this game. If you haven't played an Elder Scrolls game, go out and get one. If it's not your type of thing, look at anything else on this list. I mean, there's at least a game on here for any unexperienced RPG player. And I hope you guys enjoyed the list. If there's anything that you would like to add or any opinions you'd like to give me for maybe a top 20 or top 25 or top 50 maybe down the future, that would be great. I'm sorry this video took so long to do. I just had to get the rights to all the trailers. Had to piece together a script, and I used that through various Wikipedia sites and just my own personal opinion. Had to write that down, make sure I didn't fuck up or anything. And I'm sorry this took so long. I'll try and make any other top 5s a lot faster. Not so much trailers, actual gameplay, but hopefully you guys really enjoyed. I know I enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later. Subscribe, like, comment, tell me what your favorite any RPGs that you would like me to add, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.